All right, so talk about some of the guidelines that you and Cornerstone developed, some of the accountability issues, some of the boundaries that you have to set up in order to go on sabbatical and then be able to do what you want to do, which is rest.
Right, exactly. So there were 4 areas actually. When we thought about sabbatical, we broke it down in these 4 things. We needed to retreat, and I can get into that more.
Yeah.
But I'll give you the 4, and then you can ask me.
Yeah.
The overview is, 1 is we had to retreat, which means we had to pull back.
Right.
We had to stop doing what we were doing completely. The people we were meeting with, we couldn't go in and come out, go in and come out. We had to step out of everything we were doing. That's retreat. So part of retreating, and when we retreated, then that allowed us to begin to rest. And then in time of rest, and we can talk about that a little bit, that's when it really gave time to be with the Lord, to listen to the Lord, and then to allow Him. There was some revelation, really, that began to happen where the Spirit of God started to reveal things that were happening in our heart. And then re-entering, we termed recalibration. In other words, now that you've been in sabbatical, what needs to change about your life as you re-enter leading at Providence? Now, I was hoping I would still have a job when I got back. So that was part of the fear. Like, do they still want me? When I came back.
But let's, you've shifted a little bit. You started to say we instead of I, and I think it's important to include your family here because family is a very important component of sabbatical. Right. So talk a little bit about that too, because not just you, it's your family that is going to be involved deeply in sabbatical.
Right. Yeah, when we were working through the process of sabbatical, at first I wasn't thinking about my wife. Yeah. She was still working. And I recognized it is about our whole family because we needed to reconnect as a family. We needed time together. So financially, we had a plan. Right. That's a whole nother deal. You have to have, the church has to have a financial plan. Right. And then we had to have a plan as a family of how we were going to take sabbatical financially. And that's another reason why it takes a year. Right. To plan, because I wanted my wife to also not work and to be with me. So that's one. And as much as possible, depending on the age of your kids, in our case, we wanted our kids to be with us through it as much as possible.
And I think it's really important to highlight that when you say you wanted Jill to be with you, your wife to be with you, it's so easy for pastors to have another lover, the church. And they get sucked into a ministry where it's all about ministering to the church, to the church, to the church. And I can't tell you how many wives come in for counseling and talk about, I've lost my husband. He has another lover. It's the church. Right. And so that's an important component in planning a sabbatical because you want, another goal is reconnection with your wife. Right. Something that's easy to lose over time in the course of ministry.
Right. That's exactly right. And so for me to say to my wife and give her permission and say, honey, I want you to do this with me. Right. And then be intentional about that, what that was going to mean. As we retreated, rested, there was time for revelation to hear really from God and then recalibrate. We were doing that together. Now, part of the resting and retreating was for me to get alone time as well. Yep. And Jill knew that. Yep. So Jill wasn't like, where are you going? So there were times where I needed to be completely by myself in order to just to delight, to be with the Lord, to listen, to pray.
Right. So take us through briefly the retreat, the rest, those 4 components. Okay, so let's talk about retreat first. Okay. To the degree that you haven't talked about that now. Okay.
So retreating meant completely, and this was really hard. This was hard for me. Retreating means completely disconnecting from ministry, related activities, disengage with people, not read commentaries, not study, not envision, all the things that I love to do, all the things that I have been doing for the last 20 years. So so all my close friends, for instance, here's what they did. Yeah. They said, you're off the grid. That's actually the term we used. Phil's off the grid. So off the grid meant they changed my phone number. They changed my email. They took me completely off the grid and communicated to the church and to my closest friends that for 3 months, you will not be able to talk to me. Now, that was hard.
Now
that was really hard.
That's got to be hard on
You were one of those guys.
That's right. it's going to be hard on a lot of levels because, number one, you're separating, you're disconnecting from those people from whom you have drawn life. That's on the one hand.
Right.
On the other hand, there's always going to be the friend who says, Phil means all those other people, but not me.
Exactly, and that was happening.
And so therefore, you're hurting people.
Right.
People are feeling disconnected, feeling offended maybe. Well, wait a minute, you mean it applies to me too?
Right.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, that did happen. Several people said, I'm really looking forward to your sabbatical because I know then you and I can spend time together. Right. And I had 10 people say that to me.
Wow.
And I would go home and say, these people think they don't understand. You know, these people think that I'm going to be spending more time with them, and
which would actually contradict the purpose.
The purpose
of
sabbatical, which is disconnecting.
Right.
I in my mind, here's the image I created. In ministry, you're in a crowded room with people and furniture and all this stuff to do. Sabbatical is leaving that crowded room and actually entering a room where there's nothing.
Wow.
It's empty.
Wow.
And you walk in and you're totally uncomfortable with that because it's nothing. You're not used to it. You're like, where's the people? Where's the furniture? And it actually at first can be a little daunting as you enter that empty room.
Okay, I want to push back there. A little daunting is an understatement.
Yeah,
it's very threatening.
It's threatening. That's a good word.
It's
Thank
really
you.
hard.
Dave, you always make it real.
Yeah.
It's very hard. It was
hard.
It was very difficult to actually retreat.
Yes. Yes. One of the things I know about you and your ministry is you are very much involved in people. And I know that at 6:30 in the morning, 7 in the morning, sometimes we get a phone call from you. It says, hey, I'm praying for you. I'm thinking about you. Lord bless him. Right? And you do that with many, many people. Well, now you go to that room.
Yeah.
And you go to pick up the phone, and then you go, oh, I can't pick up the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So
I think I had phantom
leg pain.
No, like my phone was ringing, and it wasn't ringing.
Right.
It was like so used to ringing, I had like phantom ringing on my leg.
Yeah.
It was really weird.
Yeah, yeah.
At first, or really for the first week or two.
Yeah.
Strangest thing, I found myself every time it was quiet.
Yeah.
You know what I would do? I was reaching for my phone.
Yeah.
I was so patterned.
Yep.
Like, go to my phone.
Pavlov's dog.
Yeah, I was so patterned that it took probably in the retreat and rest time, it probably took 3 weeks just to begin to see some of those mental patterns, the going to the phone, flipping up the computer, that to begin to break.
Right. Now let me ask you a hard question.
That's just the retreat part.
That's just the
and then
retreat
we can
part.
talk about the rest part, which was kind of strange.
Okay. And you can transition into the rest part too, but here